Thanks for staying with us. It's now time to go to the press and see what we can lift off the press this morning. And joining us to discuss the headlines is Mr. BIODUN SOWUNMI, a public affairs analyst. Good morning and welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning.
Okay. There are very few headlines this morning, at least in the papers that we have. The Guardian, The Nation, The Tribune, and The Punch. So let's begin with the Guardian newspaper. Edo election tribunal is the leading story there. Ighodalo rejects verdict, Okpebholo's olive branch, and heads to appeal court. That is the story on the Guardian newspaper. And we also have that same story on The Nation. Okpebholo extends olive branch to Ighodalo orders. And everywhere, basically, we have that same story. So tell us what you think about the outcome of that verdict, the outcome of that case in Edo State, especially in light of the fact that there was a leaked document yesterday that suggested, or not yesterday, the day before yesterday, that suggested what the outcome was going to be, and it turned out exactly as it was in that leaked document. So while you're commenting on what you feel about what has happened in Edo State, just a word also about the judiciary in light of what has happened, these events that happened.
Well, let me start with the judiciary. Yes, it's true a leaked document came out, but we should not forget that there are two cases. One filed by the chairman of Action Alliance, Ojo Lakwe, I think that's his name, and of course he was seen to be a meddlesome interloper, and that was dismissed because he was not an active participant in that election. He was not a candidate, so he could not have challenged the result of an election, when in reality the matter he raised were the election matters, which were never challenged at that point in time. The second verdict had to do with the Ighodalo of PDP versus Okpebholo of APC, who is the current governor. If you are to look at that judgment again, I went through it, the news reports on it. It became very evidently clear that if we are to believe the tribunal, that most of the evidence, that they had a very good, solid evidence, but it is their duty, to present the evidence, through either presiding officers, polling agents, to explain exactly what happened, which never happened. That the evidence were dumped on the tribunal as if it's the business of the tribunal to prove the case, whereas it's the business of Ighodalo counsels and its witnesses to establish their own case. So, of course, on the strength of that, and coupled with the fact that they felt there was no substantial non-compliance with the electoral rule. That does not mean that there were no infringements of the electoral rule, but they were not substantial enough to warrant the cancellation of the election, because that's the position of the law in Nigeria. Now, if you have to look at the issues leading to that, you would also say that probably if they were to rerun the election today, you may probably end up having the same result. And I will tell you why. It's not about Asue Ighodalo, a very good, solid candidate, very intellectual, and seems to have grasp of what to do with the economy of Edo State. I think his loss has more to do with the governor, the then governor, Godwin Obaseki, who in any case had made so many enemies, not only within the party, but also, key stakeholders. For instance, there was no need for the hiccups with the Oba of Benin. That actually worked against him, against Ighodalo, even though he was not the one that caused the problem. The issue of Oredo local government is also very clear. That's a huge local government with good votes. But he had issues with the Igbinedions, and the Igbinedions are seen, as the godfathers of those places. Then you talk about Edo North. There are only two key stakeholders in Edo North. One was his own deputy, who was with him, Philip Shaibu, and the other, Oshiomole. But along the line, he fell out with Philip Shaibu to the extent that he had no one to mobilize heavily for him in Edo North. Because we can't have Oshiomole and Shaibu on the same side and expect, to win Edo North. And if you analyze the results again, you realize that he lost the election in Edo North. That's exactly Edo North Senatorial District. That's exactly the facts. If you are to repeat the same election today, you probably will see the same pattern. But that does not mean that there were no malpractices. Of course, there were malpractices, but they were not substantial enough to warrant the cancellation of the result of the election over just the litmus test of substantial non-compliance, and that was not established according to the tribunal.
Okay, let's go to constitutional matters. Still based on what we're talking about, the issue of one of the candidates one of the complainants, I don't know how to call him, I think complainants, let me say so, that brought a case that was struck out because he was not an active player in the election. Now, what do you make of that kind of a law, that I, as a citizen, a member of the office of the citizen, which is the highest office in any nation, will have a complaint about a particular thing involving an election, and because I was not a participant, maybe like a candidate or something, I have no right to say what I saw and what I think should be done? Just apart from the fact that it's a dual election, but generally in Nigeria, what do you think about a law like that, that if you don't participate, no matter what you see, you should keep quiet as a citizen?
Yes, the National Assembly actually passed that electoral act, and the essence, if you notice over the years, we have people who are maybe some interlopers, nothing to do with them. Some people filed a case in court, not because they are a party to the case, but because they needed to prove one point or the other. Others would do that probably to negotiate with the winner one way or the other. So I think in the wisdom of the National Assembly, they came out with that to say that, look, if you are not an active participant, then what is your interest in this? So they removed the locus. And the moment they removed the locus from those who are not active participants, nobody protested. We all seem to accept that it will aid quick resolution of electoral cases. And eventually, we've seen the situation currently. What the chairman of AA in that case was complaining about was that he was not able to validly nominate a chairman, a gubernatorial candidate for AA because he did not sign it. So those are pre-election matters. But the truth of the matter is, any Nigerian should be able to challenge, any results of any election if he's dissatisfied. But we should also know that that may take us into another realm of electoral cases not being decided, even before the end of a tenure. So that is the real downside of that. So I think what they've done is to try and streamline it, to make sure that you have a locus and establish what that locus is, which is you must have been a participant in the election before you can challenge it.
Okay. Another headline here, the Guardian newspaper still, Trump slams 14% tariff on Nigerian exports. That's a small headline at the top there, the Guardian newspaper. All exports from Nigeria, 14% tariff. That's what we are going to face. So that will include the jet A fuel that Dangote is exporting to America right now, and any other thing that's coming from Nigeria, 14%. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, if you actually look at it, to what extent have we made up of Agua brought in by, I think it's the Biden administration, in terms of the African Opportunity Act for us to export, is when you produce enough that you can export. Apart from what are we producing enough? We are the world leading producer of cassava, and of course, we still need more cassava in Nigeria. Gari is so expensive rather than coming down. And in any case, we have countries from Ghana, neighboring countries coming in actually to buy a lot of that for their ethanol plant. So therefore, we still need to produce more. I cannot see how we will suffer through the 14% tariff because we import more from the United States than what we export. So basically, it's just about us retaliating should that be implemented. But my understanding is that Trump is coming up with all these tariffs over all countries in the world. Of course, America cannot fight all countries in a trade war. But what I see Trump trying to do is to get individual countries to negotiate their own deals separately. Don't forget he has a transactional approach to life. So I think that is what he's trying to do. I can't see him enforcing it, on poorer countries like Nigeria, but I think he only wants a basis for discussions.
All right, let's move to the Nation newspaper and take this story. High hopes from NNPCL as new board takes off. That same story on the Tribune is saying NNPCL shakeup, mixed reactions trail Kyari's removal, appointments of Ojulari and Kida. That also is on the Punch newspaper, why Tinubu sacked Kyari, NNPCL board officials. But we're concentrating on the Nation's report. High hopes for NNPCL as new board takes off. The writer there is experts chart way forward. Finally, because I'm sure a lot of Nigerians have been calling for the removal of Kyari, thinking or hoping that when new blood is injected into NNPCL, there will be improvements. Now it has happened, and like they said in the other newspaper, there are divergent reactions to this development. Where do you stand?
I think the removal of Kyari at the time the president did is right. Don't forget that prior to Tinubu's coming on stream, we had our production decline to the level of about 800, 900,000 barrels a day. Tinubu came in and then insisted that they need to jack up production up to 2 million barrels a day by the end of December. We've seen some sluggish movement up and down, up to 1.7. Now we're back to 1.4 million barrels a day. Of course, the president won't be satisfied with that. The second issue is the transformation of NNPCL. In order to achieve the goal, when NNPC was actually restructured to become a limited liability company. The goal is to make sure that NNPC becomes the Nigerian version of Petrobras of Brazil or the Aramco of Saudi Arabia. Just last year, Aramco made a profit of over $100 billion. So therefore, why can't we do the same thing? So due to that, there's the need for new blood, in any case, from the private sector. Don't forget Kyari and so many of the people relieved have been in the system for some time. But with Pius Akinyelure's board, Pius Akinyeluere had his own background in Mobile. It became very clear that they could not achieve the target of the president, even though they made some impressive improvements. For instance, we had the Warri and Port refinery, restarted under their leadership. So it's not that they didn't achieve anything, but the achievements were not, sufficient enough, to retain them. And the president needs to ensure that NNPCL, becomes a fully functional limited liability company with a view to sell the shares, to other Nigerians. So what we don't know is what would happen, in the gas sector, because the Nigerian gas company, will it now be a separate company with shares sold? What would happen to NNPC refineries? Will they be sold off independently, to private sector, or will they be sold off jointly, to one person or to some other Nigerians? We don't know how they intend to put that on. And I think the changes the president has made now, mainly bringing in people, technocrats from the private sector who are proven track record in that industry, they will be able to work on some of this agenda which Nigerians are asking questions on, and then move NNPCL on to become a fully fledged liability company, which shares sold to Nigerians.
Well, one of the things that the president asked them to do is to achieve 3 million barrels per day crude output rather, and a $60 billion investment. Do you think that is realizable?
Yes, if you look at the number of oil blocks which many Nigerians have, people obtain those oil blocks without necessarily having the resources to invest in them or refusing to invest in them, just holding on to them. And of course, that is not acceptable because we need to increase, our oil production in order to meet national aspirations. So that is being looked into currently based on my understanding. The other issue is there's no way you can attain the level of production expected by Mr. President without actually investing, particularly in the deep water, that is in offshore. That is where we can hit those targets, not onshore. Now, to do that also, to attract the necessary investment in that sector, you need to free the oil blocks which are redundant currently with a view to get them, to get those in the private sector who are interested, including oil majors, to actually put in the necessary investment in that sector. The other issue is redundant wells, which we also need to look into. The redundant wells can still generate more oil, more crude oil, due to the improvement in technology, but it needs investment. So who would actually put in this investment if not the private sector? So without, placing people who are better placed, in the board, and also ensuring that the management of NNPC is done by technical professionals, technocrat, he may not be able to achieve all this because you need to attract the private sector in with a view to invest not only in the redundant oil wells, but also in disused oil wells with a view, to attract maximum production. So within that context, if they're able to achieve that, we might be able to hit the 2.2, 2.5 million barrels a day. But to attain 3 million barrels a day is not impossible. But we may fall short of that.
Oh, okay. Well, as a follow-up, NNPCL raises petrol pump price to 950 naira per liter. It's as if they just wait for any opportunity to hike the price in petrol prices, and right now that is where we are. We are back to almost square one, 950 naira per liter in NNPCL filling stations.
Yes, that's quite inevitable. If you look at the movements in the oil market, there are two factors majorly that determines the price of crude. And the price of a barrel of crude also affects the cost of PMS. And those major factors are affecting the price of crude. One is the strength of our currency, which is the naira, because crude oil is traded in dollars, and because it's dollarized, whatever the value of dollar is, the federal government will only sell to the refineries at the equivalent in naira. Now that has stopped, so it makes little difference to me whether because we are selling in naira or dollar, that is why the price of barrel of oil is going up. That is not the case in this situation. Now, you also have the movements in relation to the demand and supply at the international market. Now, if the demand for crude goes up and we are not able to meet, the world is not able to meet that demand, of course, the price will change of a barrel of crude oil. So it's not simply just about Dangote or other refineries in Nigeria being, buying the crude oil in naira. A lot of other factors depend on that. The price of a barrel of crude oil at the international spot market would greatly affect what is happening in Nigeria. Now, with the moves to resolve some of the resolutions in the conflictual areas, for instance, the Russia-Ukraine war, if Trump succeeds in doing that, we will see a major crash in the price of a barrel of crude oil. The simple reason is this. Russia has the capacity to produce 10 million barrels a day, and they're currently producing about 6 to 7 million due to sanctions. Once the sanctions are lifted, you have about 3 to 4 million, barrels of oil coming into international market, and that would depress prices. The second issue is this: if we're able to, avoid U.S.-Iran rifts and then sanctions is lifted on Iran, Iran has a production capacity of 4.5 million barrels a day. And that would ensure that oil will continue. 30% of global oil will continue to flow through the Strait of Hormuz, controlled by Iran, into the Persian Gulf, because they need the Persian Gulf. If there is war between US and Iran, Iran will block the Hormuz Straits, so a Strait of Hormuz, and therefore 30% of global oil will not be able to get to the market. So a lot of factors, not necessarily controlled by Nigerians or by NNPC or by Dangote, can affect situations at one time or the other. So everything depends on what happens at the international level.
Okay. Well, we do hope that conditions will change. Just that when conditions change and the price of crude comes down, Nigeria loses money, but the Nigerian people begin to enjoy, because possibly fuel will come down. So we don't know. We are between the devil and the deep blue sea. We don't know whether to pray for the price of crude to come down, or to pray for the price of fuel to come down, as PMS and Jet A and all that. I want to be able to fly to wherever I'm going to, like I used to fly. Now it's like it's a dream that can never come true, to fly to anywhere you want to go to, because it's really, really expensive. But that's the much we can do.
The solution is actually to ramp up production. Because if you don't ramp up your production and prices fall, we will lose foreign exchange, we will lose income. So if we are able to ramp up production, as been envisaged or has been advocated by Mr. President, then we'll be able to at least absorb, the shocks in loss of foreign revenue, in loss of dollars into our own foreign reserves.
That makes a lot of sense. Get more, so that if it drops, you can still make the revenue that you need from the much that you are producing. Well, this is how we wrap it up on this segment today. We'd like to thank you, Mr. SOWUNMI, for your thoughts this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. BIODUN SOWUNMI is a public affairs analyst. He was helping us make sense to some of the headlines on our national dailies this morning. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll be looking at our first hot topic, which is the Edo polls, tribunal verdict, political drama, and the road ahead. Stay with us.